Thank you, Professor Senanayake, for those kind words of introduction and for chairing this session. Let us start with, and also a warm welcome to everyone here in the hall and those who are joined on Zoom. I really appreciate your presence today. Let me begin with an explanation of the title. I have already been asked by a Buddhist scholar. By the way, I am no scholar. I'm only a student of Buddhism. As to what is Buddhism is a verb. Now, the title read as Buddhism is a verb, which covers all aspects of human life, including parenting. I have heard this term being used by none other than Venerable, most respected Mahathero, Henepoda Gunaratna Thero, during a discussion, when there were questions being asked by several foreign people. And then he sort of said, look, after answering many of them, he said, Buddhism is a verb. And I think I had no reason not to fully, apart from the fact that the Mahathero has said it, I see that also because it is a doing word. Buddhism is not just for a theoretical exercise. It's not for just learning and or reading and thinking about it and then shutting the book and putting it away. There is transformation that is required. The transformation, even if it was in the mind, it requires effort. So, and of course, it is also got to be in transformation in one's words, actions, and altogether in one's behavior and attitude. So therefore, Buddhism is a verb. And I also brought it up to show that it covers all aspects of human life and also to justify why we are going to speak today about parenting, because often as the servants of the Buddha, many of our talks are fairly deep Dhamma and directed, they are Nibbana oriented. But this isn't. Parenting isn't Nibbana oriented. So I would like to just take you through the roadmap where I will first discuss 3 levels of Buddhism, which provides 3 different types of benefits. First, then let's share some thoughts on parenting. And finally, as Professor Senanayake said, we are going to meditate, and that is about a third of this presentation. So not just a very short meditation. It is on the 4 Brahma Viharas. So let us then begin with the first of my goals to try to cover, which are the 3, if I were to say mention, what are the 3 aspects of 3 aspects, major aspects that we think of in the Buddhist teachings, I think the answer will come, and it is quite right, Sila, Samadhi, Prajna, which are the 3 different, but that's the content area of this teaching. Now, when we write a curriculum from my experience in the faculty, we have a content to the curriculum. Likewise, Sila, Samadhi, Prajna is the content, which is the restrictive or disciplinary part. Then the meditative part of this, which is quite different to the restrictive, though they are obviously supportive of each other. And then the third, which is the wisdom or the reflective aspect. That's not what I meant by saying the 3 levels. Then how do we deliver the teaching, and how should one accept and understand the teaching? Would be Sunata, which is by hearing it, Dhareta, which is by contemplating and processing what we heard. So Sunata, Dhareta, and then Charata, meaning it changed, that transformation I said. So all these three, of course, need hearing and thinking and contemplating. These are all present continuous verbs. And then finally, the wisdom by reflection. So that also is not what I'm talking of. What are the three levels of, what are the three benefits we get? Now, what are the three benefits we get by understanding, studying Buddhism, following it, and transforming ourselves? They are the first level. Everyone is not very close to Nibbana, let's face it. Many of us are not, maybe some are, but here in the audience too, but certainly I'm not, and we are quite far away from Nibbana. So there are three levels. However, there is a place for everyone to benefit by this Dhamma. And the first, and because of the different levels at which one can understand the depth of it as well. The first is to have benefits in the here and now, which is in this life itself, which has been called Ditta Dhamma Sukha, and such teachings are Ditta Dhamma Sukha Kata, or Sukatta, as it were. Then the next is for benefits in the next subsequent rebirth. So there are now, as for the first of here and now, we all know the Buddha has told us what trades to do, or what are the forbidden trades, how to spend your money, how to, well, even about parenting, as we will discuss. So many, even in the Mangala Sutta, whom to associate with, and so forth, who are the friends in there's a sutta all about Kalyana Mitta, and who are the false friends. So those are all for this life. Then the next, which is for the next life, is teachings like being dana, sila, and so forth, which will bring good benefits, even if you don't aspire or likely to get Nibbana in this life. You get a good life, a rebirth, which will be conducive to further progress. So that is known as Samparayi Sukha. The first was Ditta Dhamma, here and now, Samparayi in rebirth. And the third is, of course, the ultimate goal, Paramatta Sukha. So those are the three levels of benefit. And that doesn't mean that one has to stop at one, but one could obtain all three levels, or whichever, as one, depending on one's abilities, capabilities. Now, just for you to relax a little bit, after that, I would like to give the background to where I read this and how that came about. This was written by Bhikkhu Bodhi, and you could find this as in a newsletter in the BPS, newsletter 9495. And I think it is very worthy of being showcased like this, because it's not one that we come across often, that there are three levels, because we sometimes tend to say, oh, Amisa is not that's a here and now thing, where people would get a lot of benefit by liking, say, a lot of lands, and then some could say, oh, you should be meditating, not this. But on the other hand, at that time, that person requires that solace, or that the peace that comes. So there is a benefit. And in the Paharada Sutta, which is in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha says, and this has been beautifully translated as every drop of water in the mighty ocean has the taste of salt. And likewise, the Dhamma and the discipline have only one flavor. And that is, as you know, what is the flavor? The flavor of freedom. Freedom from suffering. So these three levels, here and now, you get a good good sense of freedom of suffering. If your children have, by parenting, become, quite a big problem for you at the end, they have turned out to be, well, that's not going to be a here and now, whereas if they were decent human beings who were civilized, then you don't have those problems. So here and now, parenting falls into that group. That is why I wanted to justify that. And this came out by Bhikkhu Bodhi in response to a situation where some of you may remember there was a visit by a religious head of a religion to this country, a very well-known person, who had written a book. And in that, the entire book was not on Buddhism, but there was some reference to Buddhism as not being of any value to this life, but it was all about otherworldly and so forth. And this obviously caused a lot of irksome discontent, discomfort among the Buddhists and the Buddhist clergy, and it filtered into, letters to the editor as to why are we welcoming so and so, and things like that. And then this religious leader arrived and actually apologized, but even with that, not everybody was appeased, but people felt a lot better after a lot of publicity was given by Bhikkhu Bodhi writing on this and saying there are 3 levels, and for this world as well as the next world. So that was the value of that article. And the name of it the title was The Threshold of Understanding. And it was a responsive reply to that book, which was, I think, called Threshold of Hope. So that was, I think, again, yet another wonderful service rendered by Bhikkhu Bodhi. And that is the reference. So now let us get on to having justified that parenting is worthy. And when we look around the world today, there is utter chaos, uncertainty, and a lot of fear. So I think it is important that we think of the future. We have all heard of that saying, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Actually, it's not rules the land, which is how it's often said nowadays. The poem, the 19th century poem by, I think, William Wallace, was the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And those 2 lines are the refrain of that poem, meaning the 2 lines that keep repeating in every verse of that poem, which shows how important of course, the status of woman as a mother, as well as, of course, in parenting. And the poem is forgotten, but that line itself is remembered. So that shows that there was something in that. So let us then get on to parenting. First of all, parents shield their children, as Buddha has said, in the Vattu Sutta, in about wealth and Vastu Sutta, the Putta Vattu Manusanam. Putta is the greatest treasure for parents, the children. Putta here is not the sons in Sanskrit, and it is Putra is both girls and boys for sure, and even in Pali, Putta is often, there's no gender to it, it's of children. So that is the first thing that I want to say. I think we have all heard this, Pitta Vattu Manusanam. But as for parents, what does the Buddha say? The sutta about parents is called Brahma Sutta. And that he places parents as Brahman by saying Brahmati Mata Pitaro. That's a line that is often heard. I'm sure you've all heard it sometime or the other. Parents were placed right up there at the highest point of the highest kind of birth that could have been achieved, which was the Brahma. So that's so much for where the Buddha placed. And in this sutta, the Anguttara Nikaya, it goes on to say, after Brahmati Mata Pitaro, Pubba Charyacha Vuchati. They are our first teachers, our first tutors, our first school. They who held us by the hand and made us take our first steps, we learn the first words, not to sit up or stand, whatever. And that's not all. The value system we can't forget also should have been and was put in by our parents, which is a very necessary group of people who the school that it is. So, and also after Pubba Charya Vuttati, which is the way we behave, we were taught how to. Next comes Pubba Devata, that to treat them as the gods. For Ahumeya Chaputtanam, Ahumeya, you know, is worthy of gifts. And gifts, by taking it even long distances, if you have to travel to meet your parents, you are still, they are worthy of that. Go long distances, at great trouble even to meet them and give them that's how it is in that verse, in that sutta. And the next thing is that there's unfailing compassion, pajaya anukampaka, that parents would have that. And likewise, this is told that a family in which, a household in which the parents are treated like the Brahma by the children in a divine status, and they are worthy of gifts and also of unfailing compassion, as they maybe grow old and need your compassion, the children grow up. That sort of household is a divine abode, is what is said in that sutta. Now, so the fact is that there are a lot of suttas. You look, all Putta Sutta, more than one Putta Sutta, and we will go through some of them. But there is no doubt that in the current situation, or we all know that it goes without saying that the family is the unit in a society. And with that saying of how the hand that rocks the cradle, it all means that the parenting will have a long influence even on the future. So societies, what happens, and the conduct, and the values that they stand for. And it is a very special relationship between parents and children. There is a sutta called the Patanjutta Sutta, also in the Anguttara Nikaya. Patanjutta means like Krutagnya, gratitude. And the Buddha has said that it is not an easy debt to repay, the debt you have to your parents. And it cannot be repaid with material things. And the sutta says, even if you place them on the throne and say that we have got them the highest status in the land, you have not, if that's what the children have achieved, even that's just a metaphorical teaching, that a reference, that is not what it is. The only way in which, if at all, you can repay them is by, in a spiritual sense. The sutta goes on to say, even if you carry the two parents on either shoulder for 100 years each, so that's all very just a simile, and even if they were urinating and defecating on you, and you have endured all that, you have not repaid them the debt you owe. That is what the Buddha has explained. The only way you can is from a spiritual sense, if they had been miserly and you have brought them to generosity and to the giving of dana. And likewise, if they were lacking in their faith, the faith tradition created saddha, if they were ethically, the conduct wasn't right, sila, and also wisdom, the panya. So that's the only way in which you could have brought, paid the debt that you owe to your parents. Now we hear this, how in so many suttas, other than the ones that we have now mentioned, that even in the Mahamangala Sutta, we will say Mata Pitu Pattanam, and likewise Puttadarasa Sangho. It's a very important relationship, both ways, both ways. And there is a sutta regarding this relationship, the dangers of not, abiding by this or not appreciating this relationship comes out in a sutta that the Buddha expounded when he visited a village called Sala. And for that reason, the sutta is called Salayaka Sutta. And that is in the Majjhima Nikaya. This was a Brahmin village. And the Buddha, when he visits, when you sort of think of and read these suttas, you realize how much somehow, in a way, more civilized the people were then, because here is a person who has come supposedly enlightened, so people are interested to go and see him, but they don't try to say, oh, he's coming to convert us and let's not listen. On the contrary, they give ear and they go to meet him. Not everybody will be bowing and showing reverence. Some would do that. Some of them would just stand by with their arms folded and watch what's going on. So that's too long for us to go into all that. But the fact is that they come up with some questions saying, what is it that you have to say about afterbirth, the next life, or whatever the question. And Buddha brings up the hell realms. And if we were to see today, in today's context, the way I see, if the young people who are told something, oh, well, there is a place called hell, I think the first thing they'll ask is, where is this place? But that is not the question that those people ask. Who qualifies to go to this place? What makes people go there? So that shows, I think, a much better level of understanding, no doubt. That may be why people at that time, by listening to these Dhamma sermons or meditating, people listen to the Dhamma. No doubt there was the Buddha and very arahants to listen to. But, you hear that people by such large numbers attain Maggapala, they attain progress. And that doesn't seem to happen now. But anyway, what the Buddha says is there were 10 very heinous, very bad, these are not grievous crimes, but the 10 worst Micchaditti, meaning wrong views, the 10 worst wrong views, which are called the Dasavattuka Micchaditti. I think it's also called Niyata Micchaditti. That's for sure. These things will definitely bring very bad results. And out of these 10, 2 are, one is Natti Mata, where you think, oh no, mother is not a special person. You can disregard that, but that's what anyone would have done. And, you poo-poo it and you don't really see that as a very special relationship which you have to, as we said, we have discussed how to behave likewise. Whereas the other is not, one is Natti Mata and the next is Natti Pita. So that is 2 out of 10. Purely by having that wrong view about your parents, you are likely said to be niyata, definitely, anyway, deserving of a hell realm. So that is how it is, and that is, we know that is not how people, we know that the virtuous people who are, educated and a good Buddhist, that is not the way they do it. But in some countries, I have come across where the mother is actually named by her first name. There are children who call the mother by her first name. So that's the level to which in some cultures. So this shows the value of cultures. Now, of course, not all parents perhaps are like Brahma. We do hear of parenting failure. Now, the adult physicians who are, I have an adult physician sitting next to me, they too, like us pediatricians, we too, like them anyway, see heart failure and kidney failure, liver failure and respiratory failure and all that. But we have a system that fails, which doesn't fail in their case, your patients, parenting failure. When it comes to child health, and it is quite common, not only we, education this, and there is very a renowned counselor here listening in front of me. I'm happy to have her here, where they know parenting failure. But this is nothing new, even in the time of the Buddha. Sopaka was left in a cemetery, probably one of the first cases of child abuse on recorded history. Then Jivaka, the Buddha's physician, he was left on a rubbish dump by his mother after birth. She had been a royal courtesan, and anyway, somebody from the palace itself, a crown prince riding by, heard the child cry, and so saw all the crows around, and they got it investigated, and the child actually returned to his same palace of King Bimbisara, and things he had a good life subsequently, and he studied hard and became the Buddha's physician, Jivaka. So we have on record that there was parenting failure then too, as we have now. So that is, of course, to be seen, but let us see what the Buddha has said about, and also what we now know in today's context about parenting. About parenting, as we know, has like three aspects. First is you provide the child with the physical needs or his basic needs, which is food, clothing, shelter, and medicine. These are the four, which are the same as the four essentials that even a monk requires or everybody requires. So if there is a catastrophe, the refugee camp will provide these four. So those are the very four basic things. So that's one side. The second is you give the child opportunities to go to school. There are some countries where they say one particular gender is not allowed to go to school. Now that's all wrong. So that's not that the parenting fault, that's a political issue there. But children have to be given their opportunities to learn, opportunities for sports or music or whatever it is, or art or whatever it was that they have a skill in and talent in, and there's also what will be useful for them in life. So that's the second group. And the third is, we are told, give them a sense of security. So love and security go together. Now let us see what the Buddha said about parenting. In the Dutiya Vagga of the Samyutta Nikaya, there is a very interesting one where the Buddha gives 4 points, not these 3. I gave you 3 now. The physical, the opportunities, the basic needs, the opportunities, and the love and security, sense of love and security. But the Buddha, first one he put is, I'm not saying that the love and security was the last, but anyway, that's how it's listed. But the Buddha's list starts with suhada. Suhada is affection, the show of affection. So that, I was thinking, that begins as the first thing. From the moment of conception, if there is suhada and affection for this baby who is going to be born, it's only a few cells yet perhaps, the business of termination of pregnancy won't be that much there because it's suhada. But of course, there were failures even then and now, but that's how it is. Circumstances may be creating some of them. But suhada came first. And next was one that we didn't have in the other list, janeti, meaning prenatal care. How very advanced, so many 26 centuries ago, to speak of prenatal care. And because we are told that, antenatal care is so important and this is something new. Those days they didn't realize that you have to go to get yourself assessed so often during the pregnancy, but wait till the end and then go. No, this was told then, and we now know how dangerous, how important prenatal care is, what the mother eats and drinks. For example, alcohol. There is a fetal alcohol syndrome, which is not only not always that you can see the features in the child at birth. When he becomes very, very badly behaved with attention deficits and hyperactivity and causes chaos, they are also found to be, that is, sometimes such children have been adopted, and then you will realize the difficulties only much later. I have seen such circumstances. So how important was Janati? Then Buddha puts poseti, which is the nourishment, the basic needs that you gave, in nutritive and otherwise. And the final one is tosenti, meaning keeping that whatever that will make that child happy, like the skills he needs or the school or whatever vocation he wants to do, as well as values. How can a child who you bring up be happy if he wasn't put on the ethical, on an ethical basis, go on ethical grounds? So this is something that parenting can do from the beginning. You don't wait. Unfortunately, that is not happening because the accent now is to get those needs. The parents are busy making money for the child, and sometimes I know mothers see a sleeping child when they go to work and a sleeping child when they return, because the two people have to earn to reach all that the needs or the expectations that they have. So this Tosenti includes values, and children can be given those values in so very many ways, even through the stories that are tales that are told to them. They don't necessarily have to be Jataka stories, even other stories or Jataka stories. Then they can be made to do simple things like offering flowers, where at that level even. So from a very young age, the moment the 5 precepts comes on board, obviously there is, you don't kill, which means there's compassion and kindness. You don't steal, and you have again compassion and generosity. And you have, you will not have the value of good speech can be taught to children. So these things have to be taught, and no doubt you expect this to happen in schools, but is there really a place for, they may be teaching, is there Sara Dharma or the values being taught as a subject or in any component? Hardly any. So that is a thing about where parents will have to step in as the Kubba Charya Muchati section. Now, of course, the Buddha has also said in a Putta Sutta, which you find in the Iti Buttaka Pali, that there are 3 types of children that the children can be categorized to those who are superior to the parents, who are similar to the parents, and who are inferior to the parents. Now, this is the yardstick used is their conduct, their ethical behavior, their faiths, and generally their conduct. So, so I think this is called Atijata and Abhajata and Samajata. So anyway, that at this point, I think with our Buddhist teachings, it is compatible with our teachings to think that we all owe our bodies to our parents. We got a particular type of hair or a particular stature, but there's something genetic and resemblance and so forth. But our mind, no doubt, the hand that rocks the cradle has a large part to play. Both parents, not only the hand, not only the mother, but the father, have a lot to in making the mind at peace. But all of the mind is not at this birth. Some of it is coming from, because these are very ancient people, we bring along the certain aspects of our minds. We know from so many Buddhist stories, somebody's behavior, even after an Arahant, they will say, oh, that's because for so many lives he has been in such and such a lifestyle. So that is why even now you see that coming through. So, so the final thing is the outcome of this child is not entirely, not that it can be done by the parents. And of course, a lot comes with associations and things like that, which is then in that first, in the Mangala Sutta, the first, Asevanacha Balana. And there's so much of value in that teaching, in that Mangala Sutta. If you look Garavocha, being respectful, being humble, Nivasocha, and then of course listening to the Dhamma, speaking well, and all these simple things are all embedded in these suttas that we hear every day, and perhaps we don't quite heed them as they should be heeded. But then, of course, we all know about Sigalova Sutta, which is also for the here and now, and it has how to interrelationships in the 6 directions. But this would have expounded, we can imagine, to an older boy, not the small children I was first speaking of, who are the Suhada, Janeti, Hoseti, Dosenti, that goes throughout life. But even that's applicable to a much younger age. But the Sigala was an older boy. He was probably a teenager or even a young man who said that his father on his deathbed had told him worship the 6 directions, but couldn't say anything more. He was too weak to explain. And the boy thought that it was that he should bathe every morning and worship the 6 directions, north, south, east, west, up and down. And then the Buddha never tells people what to do. He just says, well, what the Aryans do is, that was his style of teaching, what the Aryans would do is, this is how, and the eastern direction is what is pertinent to us today, how to deal with, how to responsibilities and duties towards your parents, and of course the parents' duties towards the children. And what the Sigalo or the Sutta says is that the children should support the parents and also perform their duties for them. That is, as they grow older, if they had certain duties that they were performing and they wanted to do that, that's up to the children to take those over and continue those. And also to keep up the family traditions, be worthy of the heritage, and even after death, keep distributing gifts in memory of the parents. So that's what the Sigalova Sutta says of the eastern direction, and the reciprocal duties from the parents to the child are again to restrain the child from evil, support good deeds, teach skills. There are five from the child, and 5 suitable, find a suitable spouse, and hand over inheritance. So that's what the parents' duties for the child are. There is also, in this whole, I just like to bring out, there is one sutta called Eka Ditu Sutta. Ditu is daughter in Pali. Eka Ditu, if you have one daughter, I don't know why that was told like that. Maybe that instance was for somebody who had one daughter. But whether you have 1 or 5 or 10, it's, I think, the same thing. They are all equally of value, and the daughter or Putta or Ditu or whatever, but whichever. But Eka Ditu, he says, if she were to remain as a householder in her life, she should be like, aim at making her like the highest disciple of this, highest disciple. And who is the highest female disciple? If you think it's Visakha, it is not so at all. Visakha was not only the great lady, but Visakha was the benefactress. The highest disciple was, there are 2 ladies who qualified for that position. Kujuttara, who was a maid in a royal palace, the King Udeni's palace, who listened to the Buddha and came back and told the queen of what she learned each day from listening to the Buddha. So that's Kujuttara, and she became a very learned disciple. And another lady called Nanda Mata, who was also called another name, Velukande, because she came from a village called Velukande. So if you have a daughter and she remains at home, aim at her being like this. If she gets ordained, this is what was interesting, I think, for us to know. What the Buddha says is, let not material possessions, honor or praise be hers. So if she becomes ordained, there is no place for praise and honor and so forth. Anyway, let's get on now. We have a fairly big section to do. We knew that parents have to be like Brahma. What does that mean? They had the 4 qualities of the Brahma: Metta, Karuna, Mudita, and Upekha. And so these are known as the Brahma Vihara or the 4 divine abodes. It is not only parents. The Buddha has this teaching, Buddhas, these teachings of Brahma Vihara are for everyone, but he mentioned that, which is of course true, because I don't think a parent is ever jealous, but will rejoice with the child. And parents will always have compassion if they are down. So, and there's metta. In the Metta Sutta, it is a mother that is mentioned as Mata Yataniyam Puttan Ayusayaka Putta Manurakke. She will even give up her life to protect the child. So that is correct. But I would like to now, we didn't have the meditation session in the start. We can now settle down to do some meditation, not just metta, but let us also meditate on karuna, and also let's meditate on mudita, and also meditate on upekha. Now, I must say that I couldn't find appropriate lines, Pali lines. The metta is very readily available, so let's do that. But I have found one for karuna, which I asked the monk, and he agreed, yes. Mudita, I asked, I didn't get a reply. I found one and said, yes, maybe, yes. The 4th one, I actually didn't get any reply, but I have managed to find something, which I should not be pointing things, but I am pretty sure that is correct, and you will, most of you will, all of you actually, will agree with that is the upekha. So let us then settle down to starting with metta, meditate on metta for a while. How to cultivate our minds. That's what it is. We are meditating, we are cultivating our minds on the 4 Brahma Vihara. So let me just tell the Pali lines. I will make it into a triad only, although metta has to be spread to after oneself, to people close to you, and then people who are neutral, and then people who are adverse to you. I will leave out that adverse section now for the moment, and we'll go to the first 3, and then sabbe satta, all beings. So then gently shut your eyes and just follow the Pali line, which will be followed by the English meaning, and we cultivate our minds like in that fashion. Aham avero homi, which is, may I be freed from animosity and ill will. Aham avero homi is the first one, which is really hatred. The next is aham avyapajo homi, may I be free from anger. Aham anigo homi, may I be freed from difficulties. Aham sukhi attanam pariharami, may I be happy, well and happy. Then it is, I am sappuriso avero hotu, may this good person be freed from animosity and ill will. I am sappuriso avyapajo hotu, may this good person be freed from anger. I am sappuriso anigo homi, may this good person be freed from difficulties. I am sappuriso sukhi attanam hontu. May this good person have a happy life. Next, sabbe satta avera hontu. May all beings be free of animosity and ill will. Sabbe satta avyapajo hontu. May all living beings be free from anger. Sabbe satta aniga hontu. May all beings be free from difficulties and problems. Sabbe satta sukhi attanam pariharantu. May all beings lead happy and peaceful lives. Now, that is metta, and we notice that with each line, things get better and better, starting with hatred. Anger is a little less bad than hatred, which is hatred is their revenge and revengeful. Then it's just difficulties, and finally happiness. But it has to go on universally, as we know, when we do this meditation, sitting with more time on our hands to do so. But there's just one group that you don't spread metta to, and that is dead person. This is all for the living creatures, all living creatures. So, sabbe satta sukhi attanam pariharantu. Let us now cultivate our minds and meditate on karuna. Karuna is compassion. If somebody is in some sort of trouble, how one feels for that person is karuna. How one's heart is moved is one level of karuna. But karuna is not only that. In the Visuddhimagga, it is clearly explained that karuna also has to have action at a higher level where you do something to help that person. And the third level is where you cultivate karuna to that extent that it enhances your wisdom as well. And, it's the ultimate goal can be achieved. And I will just share with you a very well-known stanza that you all know, which I think is a good way of cultivating karuna at the mental level, but of course action is also needed. Dukkha patta cha niddukha is those who are suffering, may they be free from suffering. Bhaya patta cha nibbaya, which is if they are struck with fear, may their fear be dissipated. Soka patta cha nissoka, may the grief-stricken be free of grief. Hontu sabbeti panino, may all, again panino means those who are breathing, prana, those who are alive. May all those who are suffering thus and alive may the suffering, the fear, and the sorrow be reduced. And compassion is really empathy, not pity, but putting yourself in those same situation. You spread karuna. And karuna should also be a type of meditation. With, as we said, dukkha patta chanit dukkha, bhaya patta chanit bhaya, soka patta chanit soka, huntu sabbeti panino. Now let us come to the third divine abode of mudita, which is altruistic joy, or to rejoice at another's happiness, another's success. Now, since I am not using to, let us just feel what mudita is for ourselves with our eyes closed. I do, instead of my projecting slides here of pictures of such situation, let me give a word picture and hope that you can, in your mind's eye, project that. Let us imagine, let us think of a child's birthday party, a children's birthday party of maybe 4 or 5 year olds, and all happy, clapping. The birthday cake has been just cut and people are clapping and they are all full of smiles and jumping up and down, and the balloons are up and they are trying to reach at the balloons. And if you find yourself slightly smiling, well, then that is mudita. And likewise, if we think of somebody on a victory stand, an athlete perhaps, or a swimmer, or after a tennis match, maybe the Wimbledon or Australian Open, kissing the cup and running around the field, and the feelings you get by watching that situation. Now, if you can rejoice at that, that is mudita. Or graduation ceremony, maybe of somebody you know, or even just watching everyone go up for their much longed for graduation certificate, or whatever the award. Now that is mudita, where you rejoice at another's happiness. They were all happy situation. Now, very frankly, I couldn't find Pali lines for this. The closest that I could get, and which when I passed it through one of our spiritual advisors, who said, yes, that could be taken. Mangala is a blessing, isn't it? The word Mangala, Mahamangala, blessings or festive situation. So if we were to think, since we need a well-known stanza, Bhavatu Sabba Mangalam, Rakantu Sabba Devata, may this very happy occasion be further protected, be protected by the Devas, and we also continue with the blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Bhavatu Sabba Mangalam, Rakantu Sabba Devata, Sabba Buddhanu Bhavena, Sabba Buddhanu Dhammanu Sanghanu Bhavena, Sada Sati Bhavantu Te. May the be always happy. May this happiness continue and grow. Let us then come to the fourth, which is upekkha or equanimity. Now, equanimity is not being indifferent. Equanimity is getting your emotional that needle to the center, not to swing to either side, but keep that at an even keel. Now, I found the lines of Upekha Sahagatena Chetasa, which you can understand, thoughts of Upekha, thoughts of equanimity. Eka Disam Paritva Viharati. It should be perfected and pure and abided by purely and perfectly in each direction. Eka Disam. Eka Disam Paritva Viharati. Now, we need to know what these directions are. We can't just keep the things in the center just like that. That will only be easy. And I have, after much thought, brought in these lines from the Loka Vipatti Sutta, which I think you will all believe and accept as 4 directions, in which, as in the Ratana Sutta we are told, be like that Indrakila, that strong pole buried in the earth, Yatil the kilo, Patavin Sitosya, like that thing that is buried. Takuppavatehi Asampakampyo, as far as I can understand, there are winds blowing from the 4 directions. So let us say undeterred, with the mind unshaken, whenever these winds blow in any of these 4 directions. And what are they? Labho, alabhocha, gain and loss. That's one direction. And the second is ayaso, yasocha, disrepute and honor. And the third direction, ninda prasansa, which is blame and praise. And the fourth is sukham cha dukkham, pleasure and pain. So these 4 are the 4 worldly wings that every human life has to experience at some time or another. Gain and loss, disrepute and honor, blame and praise, pain and pleasure. So it is also important, I think, if we can add on, ete anicca, because they are all impermanent, manjesu dhamma, they are all impermanent, but manjesu, all humankind have to experience it, manjesu dhamma. Asattava, not satisfactory, viparinama dhamma, and changing in nature. So for those reasons, these are the 8 that we could think of, the 8 worldly wings that come in the 4 directions, one way or another in each direction, at some time or another, but to remain with the mind unshaken, is upekha sahagatena chetasa eka disam paritva viharati. Now, come back to I hope you would agree with these 4 ways of cultivating the Brahma Vihara, which I haven't experienced it happening. That's why I thought we should, through the Brahma Sutta, come and do this here. Shall we then gently open our eyes, please? Because parenting has many, many challenges, many, many sacrifices called upon, much of, ups and downs. So these four Brahma Viharas should be cultivated and with each of the situations. So in addition to all this, in the present day, we must not forget, not just the present day, even then, with the thought of mindfulness. That is the sort of bottom line that underpins every Buddhist practice. And when it comes to parenting, there will have to be mindful parenting. And what is mindful parenting? This is the engaged today in the world. There is what's called engaged Buddhism, which is to be, I think, it's a very good thing. But in the Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh, who I think I have heard it from him mostly, who lived in the Plum village in France, had to flee Vietnam at that time. And his teachings are very widely read and well known. Engaged Buddhism and mind, which is throughout whatever you're doing. And that is what the Buddha has also said. Even in the Metta Sutta, we have Tittan Charam Nisinova Sayanova, whether you're walking or standing or sitting or lying down, you have to have metta, and that is with mindfulness, because the next bit of the line which we don't take much heed of, is Tittan Charam Nisinova Sayanova Yavatassa Vigata Middo Etan Sati Ditteya. Even till you fall asleep, Middo is, sleep. Etam Satin Aditteya. Etam Satin Aditteya. You have to be mindful and be steadfast in this, mindful Aditya. So parenting also is mindful parenting. And that is to be connected with your breathing, for example. If, say, I'm bringing up a young child, mothers who have tried this have said, when we pick up the toys for all that has been sprayed and, strewn all over, and this is at the end of a hard day, if you connect it to your breathing and relax and breathe, and that is mindful parenting. You have to just relax and not get your mind into thinking, oh, this is a terrible thing, now I have to keep picking this up. But that I have to be thankful I have a toddler who is active and who has had a good day, who is everything is strewn all over. Or whether you're changing the diapers or whatever it is that you're doing, trying to feed a child who is not in the mood of feeding, you have to be relaxed. And that is with mindful parenting. Mindfulness will help in those situations. Likewise, with the teenage years, or whatever that age is, in parenting doesn't end, it so appears. Even if they are adults, sometimes they turn to their parents. So with that, I would like to end. Buddha as a parent, for completeness sake, well, he was the primary and parent for his son from a very young age. And that was, we have so many Rahunova, the suttas, whereas to a child, he was taught all those values of being honest, of speaking the truth, and it goes on right up to the ultimate wisdom of attaining Nibbana. And Buddha, what he did for his son was perhaps the best thing that any father could do for his son. So with that, I would like to end this session. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Thank you. That was an amazing talk. It took us through so many different aspects of the teachings of the Buddha on a very broad base, starting from different levels of benefits one could derive by following the path, and then for parenting, so many details of parenting, when even to the stage of prenatal care. It's amazing how the Buddha knew all about this impact prenatal care can have in the person who is not even born, and eventually, giving birth to a being who will be such an asset to the society. So all this science is only discovering in the recent past, whereas Buddha had told about all this more than 2,600 years ago. And then taking us through even the divine abodes and impermanence, as well as the essential ingredient for the practice, mindfulness, how it can be integrated even in parenting. So thank you very much, Manouri, for such an elaborate and extensive talk delivered in so much of clarity and knowledge. So we shall now open this forum for any of your comments and questions for further clarification. Anyone in the physical audience, we give the opportunity first, and we'll also look into some other questions or comments raised by the Zoom audience. They can do so by unmuting and raising the hand. Okay, any comments or questions from me? Yes, so.
First of all, thank you so very much, when I sat down here, I was experiencing my typical sleepiness at this time of the day. I don't know where I played, but we are so very early. And what you presented are like a dense from such an extensive number of discourses up the appropriate points, like dense and strangling into like a whole string or something. And it's a pity that all these things should say, or we just take it with Brahmanara, why we can't turn them into people? One day they psychological, psychiatric therapies. For example, now Paul Rogers is probably like, it's very, very familiar to us with what we call when we say unconditional possible development for children is the best way of living. That's what you said, which is of course true. And in which there is all of this, but not explicit. So we can put this into what what they call scientific practical processes. Not that we need science to prove it's and need that, but the way that the research can understand, that our parents can understand without having to be Buddhist or anything. But I also was repeatedly listened in the law, talking about governance. It's not that I'm doing frequently that we hear people still say, even on the how can you bring children out of that? And it's really shocking to hear that. I'm sure we can find how to deal with that also in this but amazing, that's all I can say. Thank you so much. And it's so refreshing. It's not the traditional kind of discourse, it's very interesting. Thank you so much. Learned a lot. Thank you. That was Dr. Soma De Silva, who is a psychologist on Buddhist lines. She's a counselor. So, what I was thinking on corporal punishment is that if you have a pekka, and as far as I know, the teachers who are appointed as a counselor in the schools, they are supposed to have at least one person who has been trained in counseling. And if she finds a child who has, a miscreant, who has done something wrong, if she's angry, she should not have anything to do with that child. She has to go and find another teacher, and the two together will accost that child. So that is where Upekka comes in for a Brahma Vihara as a parent. You can scream at your child if he has done the wrong thing, I think. But yourself, you're not angry. You can scream to make him realize this is bad, but you have brought the needle. This is where Upekka is so important in dealing with children. We have a Montessori and people who run today in the audience. Mariah Montessori said, watch the child, not that the child should be watching the teacher, the teacher should be watching the child. But of course, that was also with the disabled children. But whatever it is, Upeka is so important. But the Upeka Sutta, Venerable Ananda meets Venerable Sariputta and says, you look so, your complexion is so good today. What was your meditation today? Because you look so different today. And Venerable Sariputta says, well, I was meditating on Upeka. And I didn't even feel that I was in the fourth jhana. I didn't even feel that. And then Venerable Ananda says, oh, that's because you have got rid of your eye-making, name-making. But it shows that after reaching an arahant of that stature also, he was meditating on Upeka. So it's so valuable.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Nothing from the Zoom audience. No one has raised hands.
Oh, Samantha has given her.
Anyone who wants to ask a question from the Zoom audience, you could do so by raising your hand.
No, they are now they can unmute. You can now unmute. You are allowed to unmute.
Can I ask a question? You mentioned
Yes.
about these 3 levels of benefit, in this birth and next birth, and eventually Nibbana. When you think like that, you are doing something for benefits in a subsequent birth. Will it not deter somebody from trying to achieve this supreme goal of Nibbana in this very birth? After all, most people are born in an era where you are exposed to the Dhamma, and the opportunity to practice Dhamma is there. And Buddha has told, Vira is one of the most important things to attain that goal. It is the Virya, and it is feasible in this very birth. When you talk of 3 levels and talking of some benefits in a subsequent birth, will it not, in some imperceptible way, try to deter one from giving that wholehearted effort without delay, pamada, to attain Nibbana in this very birth?
I know of people who have told me, after one of them is, works very closely with me in this society, who is away at a meditation retreat today. He says, I know I'm not going to make it this birth. So I take every opportunity to make, just very nice of mine. So any donations she can give, any opportunity of helping anyone she does, saying, I am not going to make it this birth. That not in a negative way. So I thought she was being negative. She said, no, I know I can't. Which is in a way realistic because, well, I like to think we are going to do this. As we heard in that last time's talk, that Bhante said that he didn't mention the names of the bhikkhus, but he said there were those who say in this life itself and those who say in this sasana itself. And that standpoint keeps changing. So whatever it may be, each one of us only knows our own self, and it's a thing that we look inward and know. And it may be still better that way than
always good to look at the positive side rather than a negative side. Okay, it's a positive thing that drives you, and then eventually you reach a goal. Okay, anything else? Any other questions? And again, I think, there are no questions. I think I'll ask you a question. I hope you don't mind. It's really how we are going to reconcile with all this sort of parenting and all. The care you give a child that is so beautifully explained. The love, the affection, all that you give a child, or the parent gives all that to a child. But how can they do all this in the context of the present society? Where the parents, very conveniently both are working. What do? They keep the 2-year-old infant into a day school to mingle with other people, pick them up at the end of all the work, late in the evening, and then it's like child is tired. Child never got that parental affection. They're trying to, imitate all this in a school, care school, but they never get that true affection that can be given by a father or a mother in someone else's place. So these are real problems we face in the society these days. I think not only in Colombo and the big cities, I heard even yesterday only, I heard my wife had got some news or whatever, how a 2-year-old infant had fallen into a pool of water and died, drowned. That had happened not in the city, somewhere, Veerakatya. So you can see how the extent to which the very rich social values we had in this country, even in the village level, has now been eroded, even in that way. So this is the sad state of the country and the society. So it's a huge problem which we all have to grapple with, just as much as we know the good things, how we can strike the right balance of all this. Money is one thing, but what for? At the end of all that, they are going to, the mother might go on for work to, find more money for the coffers to make the better economic development in the family. But what for? What is it all that worth? At the end, you are losing the life of a child. So this is thing, I think this is why, like what Dr. Soma pointed out, all these values, what Buddha had told so clearly, and which you had extracted from so many different sutras, it's absolutely amazing. It is all there, which is, which only few of us have been listening. This must be made public. It must go to the people who need to know all this from very small stages. Best influence can come from the schools and the home and the schools. That is the molding time. That's the fortune that we had as children in school and home. We were exposed to these unique qualities, the values, the Brahma Vihara, the parenting, how you look after the parents, and then what a parent does for the child, and what the children do for parents. Now it's a Iravya. The children are there only to write down the wealth. They get from the parents to get the wealth written. After that, they are done. They don't even have a home to live in. That's the sad state of affairs. So with those comments, I think we'll wrap this.
Can I just answer? I think one of the things, the big difference in the grandmothers. The grandmother was a wonderful institution of grandparents and the grandfather telling tales and all that. But today's grandmother has also changed. They don't even look like grandmothers.
That's because of the media. They are glued to the smartphone, and their minds are being poisoned by all the rubbish that is coming one after another. That is the
children see the grandmother only on the screen.
Yes. It's not like the direct contact. There's so much a grandchild can learn from the grandparents. They're from a different era. That is the rich value of the culture which is imparted to the grandchildren. At the same time, all the interaction with the grandchild has a stimulating effect on the grandparents. That's what happens. So it's a two-way phenomenon. Both benefit. The extended family and those interactions, but very sadly, all these have been tumbled by merely copying the West and the Western methods of materialistic world. Okay, I think
our culture as is Darua, the very word Darua is Dara in India. Dara, your burden or anywhere. And we never say in the English, when we did research on pregnant, they say pregnant women in the Western literature. We call them pregnant mothers. We say Garbhani Mawur. They are given the maternal status the moment they get pregnant. So that's not there in those countries, in those cultures.
Anyway, these are all food for thought. Let's try to bring about some transformation.